Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee and No Code with Gary Over and me. This is going to be a fun one because this is one where we've got an amazing technologist, Adam Korn, joining us. Incredible background in history, which this is the first time we're going to basically get this out in public, Adam, which is amazing to do, and I appreciate that and letting us do that. But most importantly, just incredible leader, partner for us, just driving the industry and just talking more about trends and what's happening and what you see. So with that, Adam Corey, if you could please do your introduction for yourself.
I guess first I want to congratulate you and really the entire Uncork team for being named Unicorn Startup of the Year by MongoDB.
Oh, thank
That's amazing.
thank you. That's it's they've been it's a partner that, believe it or not, I started working with in 2011, and I brought them into Citigroup as one of the first NoSQL technologies. I remember the first time I saw it, and it also shows you like the importance of believing in a company and the vision of the founders and CEOs. Because I stayed with them, I had them onboarded in MetLife before I even joined, and said this is the technology, and they've been amazing partners for working. Dave's just an incredible CEO, and I think you know them very well. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I know one of the founders from Brown, which is where I went actually.
Oh,
Uh, he,
excellent.
and so he left, but great company. But I'm Adam Korn. I spent nearly 2 decades at Goldman, where I spent the majority of my time as a strat, or really a data scientist in the equities business. And actually, that's where I got my original introduction to Uncork, because Goldman was one of the original investors in Uncork. Um, my primary focus at Goldman was systematic market making and electronic trading. However, I ran the engineering team across the global trading business towards the end of my time at Goldman, and that was it was a long time at Goldman. I loved it, but right before the pandemic, I decided to leave. The timing was in many ways fortuitous because I wanted to spend time with the family and to recharge. And so I can tell you with quarantine, I got more than my fair share of
Your
family and
timing could
recharge.
not have been better. That is.
I
was
accelerated it.
were you actually on garden leave at the point of the COVID start, or was that right after? Like, was it?
I did not start my garden leave officially until April, which was obviously the depths. But I hung around at Goldman to transition stuff, and when things were getting bad, they said you should go home and be with your family, which is really what I wanted to do. And then I became a third grade teacher, which I realized was very quickly was not my forte.
The days of that I don't miss right now because we had like 6 story. My office was 6 story walk up in a house, and that's I went to the top floor out of the way. And when my kids were with me, my son would come at like 8 a.m. He's like, "Dad, time for breakfast." Feed him breakfast. Run back upstairs. Then literally, I'd say, "Your breakfast is done." An hour later at 9 a.m. he comes. He goes, "Dad, it's snack time now." I'm like, "You just had breakfast." I can't. I love. I
I,
mean, that's amazing. Yeah.
I very quickly learned that I was, first of all, I still had that Goldman mindset in terms of being on a trading desk. And so I didn't switch that off for a little while. So I treated my third grader like a trader on a desk, which, needless to say, was not conducive for him, learning the subject.
Did he learn a lot of words he shouldn't have learned during
Yeah, he
that?
did. That was what my wife was most concerned about, is I was teaching him a completely new vocabulary that wasn't going to serve him well. But it was. I look back. I mean, obviously, horrible time in New York. Just horrible. Still, I think is difficult. But one of the silver linings for me is I got to spend time, and then it sort of allowed me to reflect on what next. So from there, the opportunity to join Sixth Street popped up. It was good timing because I think at that point I was really ready uh, to not be home. And so I joined Sixth Street, which I can talk about later.
Awesome. That's amazing. And so when I first heard of Adam, both at Goldman and then at Sixth Street, it was like your legend as far as not just what you've done there and the technologies, but I think it was be warned. He is technical. and he will get into the details, and you will give software vendors a hard time. And I was always like, am I a software vendor? I still feel like a technologist. I don't know. But which is what I loved about meetings, which was always, transparent. So your background, right? So I always talk about my background was engineer and growing up and watching my dad's business and playing with technology early. Your background, for those who know your last name, Korn, I grew up using your dad's inventions and software, which was Coin Shell, KSH. I mean, I was a VI guy. Were you a VI or Emacs? I got to ask. Like,
VI,
that's the
VI,
VI.
yeah.
So VI,
It was the
shift
simplest
colon
for
Q
me.
bang, right? That was how you quit and did save.
What's
Like,
amazing about it is you don't ever forget that muscle memory.
you do not, and I don't know what that is, but I could definitely still work in VI today. I haven't touched it in probably 10, 15 years at least. But
Yeah.
yes, you don't forget
My
it.
dad's nearly 80, and when I walk in, he's still doing VI.
Is he real? Oh my
Yeah.
God. So what was it like, Adam, growing up, with your dad who invented the corn shell, and just growing up in those times, 70s, 80s, the technology, seeing it being
Yeah.
born, and just, yeah, I'd love to hear.
It was really fun. I have to say, I didn't. It's one of those things where you didn't appreciate it until later in life. But my father he received his PhD in applied math from Courant, which is part of NYU,
Yep.
and but he really developed his love and passion for computer science through some research he was doing on airplane wings. And I think he liked that more than the math that he was doing. And so that really is how he became a NYU professor, but then quickly moved on to Bell Labs. And so, in many ways, Bell Labs was the ideal place for him. It was sort of like it's basically being a tenured professor, but without any of the teaching obligations. At least that's how he pitched it to me. So he got to do whatever research he wanted, and I have to say I never really understood the model of Bell Labs. Like I didn't understand how Bell Labs could make money from having this big research investment. But he finally explained it to me, and I later on sort of began to realize it was very similar to how the VC model works, where there are a lot of projects that people pursue. Many of those projects go nowhere, or maybe the projects have applications well beyond I think what was originally intended. But the focus is always, or was always, how do we reduce costs across the Bell system? And given how big the Bell system was, one problem now, but they were not there for the money. They were attracted by the lifestyle, and smart people attract other smart people, and so with one win over the course of a couple of years, that would continue to fund the research. In fact, some people argue that Bell Labs could have done a better job monetizing a lot of the IP that they created.
That's amazing. And that belief of smart people attract smart people. It's absolutely true. My brother was hired out into Bell Core when he graduated college, where computer
Okay.
science, data, which was a division. And it's really, you see the way they invested. But I agree, the monetization they didn't focus on.
That was an
Lucent.
implementation detail for all of the research.
Yes, yeah, that was a second thought. So
Yeah.
it wasn't.
I remember going and asking my father's manager, because I couldn't really figure out at that age. I was like, what does dad do? And he's like, I don't know, but it's important and we'll have to see where it goes. And that was many, many years. And then obviously with the emergence of Corn Shell and some of the other things that he worked on, I think he was able to more than, generate the cost of capital that, he incurred for Bell Labs.
Was that what got you started in technology? Was that
Yeah,
the,
it was. Like if I think back to, I mean, this is, and this is how I wonder people, like there are a lot of people who get involved in computer science and wondering, how they discovered it. Because I really had it in many ways handed to me. We had like the original Spark workstation sitting in our living room. We had an Apollo computer sitting in our living room. And so like, I remember initially going on and playing games like Snake. I have to remember that game.
I absolutely remember the game Snake. Yes. Wow.
So I that was like before my Commodore 64.
Yep.
I think I had that was I think that was slightly after the Atari 2600, which that we were the first family.
What was your favorite game? Atari 2600.
I mean, it's hard not to say Space Invaders because that was the original. We lived at the NYU faculty housing complex, and this is while my dad was part-time at NYU and transitioning to Bell Labs. But we were the first family, in that housing complex to get the Atari 2600. So that instantly made us the most popular family in the complex. So we had a stream of kids coming in and playing the Atari, and I got completely addicted to all of the games. But Space Invaders,
how many joysticks did you break? Like I used to solder those joysticks because you break.
Yeah.
They were plastic inside. It was like, who would have designed that? But yeah.
I show my kids the joysticks, and they're like, "How does this work?" And
yes.
So I still have that same machine from it was really our first gaming system. I think we got it probably it was 81 or something like that, and I have it in my office because it reminds me of how quickly technology evolves. Like at the time, that was the most cutting edge, technology I had ever seen, and it was exciting. And I was waiting for each cartridge to come out and go and buy it, and then kids would swarm, and that was like that was kind of like our first to me I developed all my close relationships through video gaming, which is why I've been so able to relate to my kids who are now obsessed with much more advanced games on the iPad. They'll play Roblox, and I have one son that's obsessed with Fortnite. Like my wife's pulling her hair out, but I get the social component to it.
It's funny you mentioned Fortnite. So when my son turned 13, he was like, "Dad, the gift that he wanted was build a computer with me." And it was so funny, Adam. I was like, "Okay, let's go to the store, buy all the parts." And I've done this many years back when we used to have to build your own computer, like back in the day. So I'm like, this shouldn't be a problem. Assemble the whole thing, the memory cards. And we picked out all the best gaming parts because he wanted it for Fortnite. He wanted it for, and of course you do what every dad does. You plug it in, turn it on, and nothing happens. So you blame the parts, right? That's what we normally do. Is it can't be me. And it was funny because I brought it back to a store. I'm like, can you please just run diagnostics? And they're like, yeah, your memory chip's bad. I'm like, seriously? I was like shocked. I'm like, you mean I was actually right? And so I used to play Fortnite with him and his friends, and it was really funny because he would protect me in the game. But now you're right. It is a social gathering. It is absolutely online social. Like Roblox, my youngest son on Roblox is amazing. Like building rockets and building ships and space, and it's all physics.
It's a lot of creativity, a lot of strategy. I think these are all skills. At least like when I was obviously Space Invaders, maybe less, but I certainly developed some strategic thinking around playing games in my Atari, and then later, of course, there was the Commodore 64, which is another life-changing event. So I just was a big that was the benefit of living in our house, is that any computer that I wanted, like my father wanted to use too, so he was very willing to bring it in in the house, and he actually could help when things went wrong.
That's very similar background with that. That's my favorite game. I think was Indiana Jones, if you remember that with the Atari. That was the one in Commodore 64. It was Larry Bird 101, which was the best.
I remember that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, of course. I played that game for a while. But the other thing I remember about my father is he was definitely ahead of the curve in terms of remote work. So he was telecommuting. Because we stayed in the village after NYU, and he did the reverse commute out to Bell Labs, which was Burr Hill, and it's moved to Florham Park. There's been in a couple locations, Homedale, but the 300 baud modem.
Yes.
He was able to. I think what he did was he mainly downloaded stuff to work on, and then he would upload it. And I remember, of course, many times I'd pick up the phone when he was working. I made a duplex. I remember hearing a whole bunch of expletives when I picked up the phone because I know I ruined his day. but
I
somehow,
remember
make
this was
progress.
the 300 baud modem you put the phone on top of, probably, or something like that. The handset would sit on it.
That's exactly
And
right.
wow. Wow, I love that. He was the earliest hybrid remote worker, which we are all now. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
I don't remember him ever going in. Like it was usually 3-2 or something like that, and it just gave him a ton of flexibility to be at home and interact with family, and I really, looking back, I really cherished that time with him.
That's
But
that's amazing.
yeah, I mean, but as you mentioned at the beginning, his big, I think what he's probably most known for is the work that he did on the corn shell, which I don't know if you know the background on the corn shell at all, but it was based on the Bourne shell, and that's for those youngsters that are listening. That's the B in Bash, or Born Again shell, and so everything in corn shell was backward compatible with the Bourne shell, and he included many of the features from the C shell as well. So in many ways, Corn was like an appropriate name, like born in C, and that kind of and so Corn worked as a name. It happened to be his last name, and so uh, one of the things I remember vividly is my oldest brother. He broke his femur bone biking, and he was out of school for a month or two. And of course, he was too young to be in the hospital by himself. So, my father would basically take the night shift with him, and there were no laptops, of course, and so he'd go in with paper, and that's how the corn shell was born in many ways. He sat in the hospital with nothing to do and was thinking about all of the improvements that he could make to
Wow.
to the corn shell.
Wow. What is that's no, I didn't know the history. That's an amazing story, Adam. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So Adam, you grew up in technology. It was a big, of course, getting you excited by that. Goldman, Strat, sitting in between business tech, understanding both sides clearly,
Yep.
right? So you have to know both extremely well, which is what that role is. And then what attracted you to Sixth Street? Tell us about Sixth Street, what they've been up to, and their goals, and what you see there. It'd be amazing.
Yeah. So like just I think just going back to Goldman for a minute. I in terms of working at like in traditional kind of big tech companies, um, I always was interested in finance, and that's one of the benefits of being in New York is that you get that exposure, and it was really the crossroads of finance and technology that excited me the most. And so I was the only one in my family that seemed to be excited about that specific cross section, and so I ended up like my two brothers are actually at Google, and so I'm the only one that went into like finance. In fact, I remember like my dad would say, "Oh, I've got actually originally my brothers were at Bell Lab or AT&T Research, which Bell Labs was renamed into, and then Google." So he'd always talk about his two sons at in tech and his son in finance, and it was always really important. So I think he was.
I gotta ask, youngest? Are you the youngest, oldest, middle? Where do you?
Yeah, I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest, and
Same
I
here,
remember.
youngest of three. So that's why
Okay,
I asked.
youngest.
That's
So
it. Another thing in common.
maybe it was
Yeah,
just being the youngest. I don't know, but
yeah.
I have this memory of D. Shaw was just getting started, and they sent all the Bell Labs people a letter saying, "Hey, like if you want to join, a quant firm, which no one knew really what that was, like sign up for D. Shaw." And he showed me the letter. I don't know why he showed it to me, but in the letter was like, "Here's the kind of money you can make if you Shaw." And that I was like sixth grade or something. I was like, "You're gonna do it, right?" And he said, "Of course not. I don't want to do that." And so that got me interested in working in financial services. So,
You're thinking
but
how many Commodore 64s you could buy, a Commodore 128s, and all the other stuff. It's
exactly. I knew it was all going to go into like buying the gadgets that I like to play with. But yeah, as far as Sixth Street goes, Sixth Street is an alternatives investment firm. We manage over $60 billion in assets under management.
wow.
We were founded in 2009, and we really focus on providing, flexible long-term capital across all industries, all geographies, really across the capital structure. And I had never done any private investing before I joined Sixth Street, and I'd spent my entire career. Hey, Gary, you still there? We may have lost Gary.
About that. I'm back.
Oh, it's okay.
Now, there we go. Cool. So you never.
I never done private investing. So it would really, and in fact, because I was on the public market side, I would say that the public markets are much more advanced in terms of its application of technology. There's a lot of data. Decisions are made in microseconds, and so that's really where technology is on the cutting edge. But frankly, when I when I got contacted by Sixth Street, I could tell that private investing is not a business that historically relied heavily on tech, and mainly just manual workflows, spreadsheets, things like that. And so as I got to learn more about it, I could see that there were great applications, of technology within Sixth Street that excited me. And so that's really, if I think about it, I see this changing, and I think that's the bet I made by joining, is that I get to enable a lot of that change.
That's exciting. We have an advisor who I worked for at Citi, John Bayman, amazing. He always says operations is the area of technology has just not gotten to yet. That's the key, is like operations. And as you know, operations in every single financial institution is still filling the gaps. You still see it everywhere we go. And it's all, to me and you, I see it as all opportunities. That's it. It's just like exciting. Let's change it. Let's drive.
There are a lot of things. I've been surprised. I've been here since September of 2020. How many so I learned a lot on the systematic trading side, and a lot actually carries over to the private investing side, which really surprised me. And I think that's just the explosion of data, and obviously the application of machine learning and AI. That all seems to map nicely. But I think that, as far as what we want to do, the vision is pretty simple, which is let's apply technology and data to all aspects of our workflow. Everything from, how we source investments to how we book deals, reporting. Like, we really want this entire business to be built on the backbone of advanced technology. So the general mantra is, let computers do what they do best, and let humans do what they do best.
I like that. Again, AI data, like, that's bringing it all to play, and it is that's amazing opportunity, and that's, again, building on what you've done your history. That's just taking it to the next step and further. So exciting to see where you bring that to, and where the firm's going to get to with that. That's very cool.
Yeah, I was almost like starting over in some ways.
I like it. Adam, what's exciting to you about technologies? Also, what you see in the market, what's happening there? What's the things that you're looking into, even from the alternative investment side, like where it's, especially with the markets that we're in now and these days, where you never know what the day is going to end and begin like these days. But
absolutely, I would say that for me, I generally believe in constant experimentation and just evaluating new technologies as they come out. I'm not afraid to be an early adopter, and so I'd say that the areas that excite me are DLT, or distributed ledger tech. Not so much like crypto's cool. Don't get me wrong. I think it's like digital assets. I think that is interesting. But I think what can fundamentally change the way that this business works is applying the underlying tech to problems across the financial services industry. That piece is missing right now, and I think that's specific to something in private investing, where I think we can start to make real
So
progress.
you're a fan. General Ledger Technologies, you are a fan. Do you hold any of the cryptocurrencies as investments yourself, or
I,
have you stayed
yeah,
out?
I've generally stayed out just because as someone that's invested for a good chunk of my life, yeah, I'm not smart enough to really understand what drives pricing, and so I learned that lesson during the dot-com bust. If you don't understand it, stay away. But like but I do think the tech itself has incredible applications. The other thing that excites me, and I think has a future, is quantum computing. Um, I think that
Yeah.
specifically in financial markets, it will open the door and enable a lot of things that, frankly, um, have not been available to investors because the products are complex. And when you're dealing with derivatives and running Monte Carlo simulations and things like that, it's just too slow to do that. To get real price discovery and to run scenarios and things like that. And so with quantum computing, that will speed that up by orders of magnitude. And I think that's an area that could be exciting to watch.
I like the two. Those are really two good topics. I like that. And quantum computing, I've had conversation trying to convince a few people, unsuccessfully, I'm just going to say, but that quantum computing's primary language to run should be on Quark as the creation language. Not that let them write their own engine, but
I
just
agree.
the definition, right? Wouldn't that be cool? You could compile it and then basically
I,
run it, and it's yeah,
it's
why not?
I wrote a couple toy things in quantum computing when a few years ago, and I have to say that it is not something you can learn overnight, and I think a better interface is something that is needed to do something at least to get a bigger audience for it. And I think with a bigger audience, the technology starts to really take off. So I 100% agree with that. Other things
That's
that
really cool.
I think are interesting. I mentioned applications of AI and ML. I think that a lot of people are really looking at that. I think what's enabled that obviously is just the growth of cloud platforms, and also just the low cost, frankly, of doing a lot of the things that even 10 years ago were impossible to do. And obviously, finally, last but not least, is low code, no code platforms, which is frankly one of the first things I did when I joined Sixth Street, was deploy on Quark, because I knew that I think I was the eighth or ninth engineer on our team. We're a new team. We're historically part of TPG. We disaffiliated in May 2020. And I joined, shortly thereafter, and I realized that in order for us to make, real progress, I didn't have the engineering power to get all these different things moving at the same time, and so we needed something to enable more rapid development, and that was a great solution for us.
I appreciate that, and you've been an amazing partner both at Goldman and Sixth Street, and it's amazing to see. And again, it goes back to like that engineering principle is your first mindset, like mine, is did someone else already do this? Like, how do I move faster? How do I do this better? Cheaper? How do I do? Like, you're always asking that, which is what everyone needs to do. I think the market we're in now, recession or whatever we're going to be calling it, and it's normally the most
Let's hope it's
exciting
not a
time to get.
recession.
I hope not too. I hope it is exactly. It's also like the needs that we see. It's the most exciting times to get things done in technology. Like I remember, and many people, this, I know this, but many people haven't lived through both the dot com crash, both the recession. Like those were the times that tech had the biggest seat at the table, and everyone said, "How do we reduce costs and how do we become efficient?" And that's what I'm excited about, is just like that idea that like you're going to be able to get things done that probably should have been done a long time ago and never paid attention to because everything's been going well. Like,
and frankly, environments like the one that I think we're entering, whether it's a recession, this year, next year, eventually it will happen just due to economic cycles.
Yep.
That's the time you really want to invest to get scale. Obviously, you hope that you've done some of that before you enter those difficult periods, but I think that we're constantly looking for ways to be more efficient to drive scale across what we do.
That's exactly. I mean, it's and it's funny because a lot of the people that came out of after the last recession ended into the market, they'd never seen this. So it's eye opening, and it's repeatable history. You could look at every single time it's happened. You could see the patterns, and I always look at it as taking advantage of the market. Like whatever market we're in, let's drive and take advantage, which is amazing. And to your point earliest, you need to surround yourself with talent. Like so, talent attracts talent. Like your dad saw it, and that's what Bell did. It's amazing. So Adam, I've asked all my questions. It's been amazing. Anything for me? Anything I could throw out there? Like what? Yeah.
Well, so I'm curious, what inspired you to build on Cork?
So it's funny. In 1994, and I'm dating myself. I was working at Bankers Trust, private bank, and I was 21-year-old kid out of college, and I went to NYU business, same as your dad, same school and village, and I loved. I think like you. I love this idea that money movement needed technology, and it was exciting and fast. Like that's why I went there. I went right to Wall Street. I worked directly on trading systems, and I was a kid, and they came to me and they go, "Hey, can you build this screen using? I think it was Visual. It was C++ and Sybase at the time. So no, and so like, can you build this one screen for money transfers?" And I looked at it and I go, "God, I could do this easily, but if I do it, they're going to come back and ask me to do another screen, and then God, what? It's going to be boring." So I created an app that you just simply filled out fields in Sybase, and it generated the database and the screen. And suddenly, within 6 months, 700 transaction types were going through every trade, every equity, every fixed income, and so that journey of being lazy is what I would call it, was the first
Well, I
vision
think
I saw.
I
Yeah.
agree. Laziness is the seed of creativity.
It's exactly it. Yes, yes. And so, like, I can't tell my kids that because they'll be like, "Dad, that's why I'm sitting on the couch playing
Right,
games." But like, yeah, that's,
right.
and so that was like, so it's been a journey, and I did it. I did the same concept when mainframe was first connecting to the web. We did it back in '99. In 2003, I created something called Grand Central, which is patented. It was the next version. 2005, created something called Q-tips, believe it or not, like earwax, and it was an XML app builder. And so I guess the journey's been on, but I've always been looking for that solution of how do you build faster, better, and cheaper. And just what's that? And that's when I created it, and it's been so it's been something that it's not new, right? Everything you've done, I look at Goldman, I look at SecDB,
Yeah, right.
it's an abstraction layer, right? That's all it is an abstraction layer on top. It's the same concept.
I
And it's
think the
just
magic, though, in terms of what you've been able to address, is you can get non-technical people being really, really productive using your platform, which is something that at Goldman with SecDB, it was a lot more challenging. Like there was some coding, software engineering background that was needed. I think that the next, evolution in building out these platforms is you really want, people who are experts within their domain, even though they may not have the technical skill set to implement, to provide contributions to workflows using tools that will allow them to be robust, testable, all the things that you guys have really preached. Which is why, again, I like this idea of having hardcore engineers sitting with people who are domain experts within their areas, collaborating and actually working on a common platform. And to me,
I
that something we never saw. I love SecDB because I used it for many, many years, but we just never got there with it.
you said that absolutely the way I say it is just, it's not about one. Everyone tries to say no code is for citizen developers and code is for engineers or local. And it's like, no, you need both sitting at the same table. And if IT could enable business to contribute, as you said, to a workflow or to a rule or to like, imagine they take on ownership, and it's why, like, so you're exactly, I mean, that's why we've grown up the same way, Adam, in many ways. So both New York City and both the youngest. So I think we come to the same conclusion, which is amazing. Thank you. That's awesome. So Adam, I know we could go on. I think we could probably go on for hours. Yeah. And so really appreciate you joining us here, sharing your stories, your background, amazing journey, and just congrats on all the work at Sixth Street and Goldman prior to that. And just thank you for being along this journey with us and helping us with this journey. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I really appreciate you inviting me to participate.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.